I'm pleased to welcome Jürgen to the stage today for this fireside chat. We're going to have a little 19 minutes of conversation with you guys about interconnected markets. Jürgen, do you want to just introduce yourself and what you do?
So hi everyone, very happy to be here. And thank you, Natasha, for the invitation. I'm the Global Head of Innovation and Digital Assets for Euroclear. Euroclear is financial market infrastructure. And for most of the people of the room, we shouldn't be here anymore because the technology can replace us. And the other half is hopefully understanding why we're here and how we can support the overall growth of the capital markets.
So the topic for today's discussion is really talking about how we often think about the issues around blockchain interoperability as being one of the stumbling blocks for why this market hasn't scaled. But from your perspective as an FMI, isn't blockchain interoperability solved now, and it's more than that?
That's usually my last punchline, that interoperability has been solved thanks to Onera. But let's maybe rewind a little bit, and because you have been all here already since this morning, and you are going to hear many panels around tokenization and digital assets and why, what's holding us back, etc. And I like to rewind just a little bit. If you think about the blockchain itself, I think, it's like a teenager today. It's like 15 years old. So, unlike every teenager is trying to find its root. But if you go back at the inception around 2008, it was like a beautiful baby, full of hope, full of promises. But it started with big challenges in life. It didn't have parents. Nobody claimed parenthood over this beautiful kid. And so he had to find ways to grow. And obviously, the DeFi space and the crypto space gave him a great and warm home where he could basically grow, show his value, etc. And he has done great. But now that the technology is maturing, people are starting to understand that there is a conversion between the DeFi and the TradFi space that needs to happen. And as much as for the crypto enthusiasts in the room, you can take all the crypto business, you can double it, and the next year you can double it, and you can double it, and you can double it. It won't still come close to the business we do in capital market. And that's why we see more and more, people trying to come to see how this all applies to our industry. And fair to say that when you look at the full value chain of things that happen over the full value chain in which we operate, from pre-issuance to issuance to collateral to settlement to payment, you name it. There have been plenty of initiatives out there, and each initiative is actually solving a real problem. But it's kind of niche. It's not scaling, and it's definitely not interconnected. And I think we have all heard over the last years, well, until the day everything is interconnected or interoperable, it will not scale. So as Natasha mentioned, Onera solved interoperability for good in the DLT space. It has been solved. So I said that during the last Onera summit in London, what's the next big excuse we are all going to find not to adopt more and to scale digital assets? And hopefully that's part of the things we're going to discuss today.
So, yeah, you talked about interoperability being solved. So why is it that things aren't scaling? From your perspective, what do we need to do in 2025 to help that market scale more?
I thought this was going to be a quiet. So obviously, I'm not going to provide. If I had the magic answers, I'll be running my own company, trying to figure out, how to bring more investors on board. But definitely, I think there is something wrong in the question. I think it's not 2025. And that's maybe one of the biggest shifts we can see today in the market. I think everyone is hungry out there because there is a true belief that the DLT can actually solve, has a transformative nature and can actually transform the capital market for good. And we heard part of it in the previous panel, you know, what's holding back, where are the asset managers, where's the buy side, etc. But we have to be patient, meaning that, you know, one of the things we have observed in the market, and that's part, you know, of the benefits of being a second mover, is that you can learn from the things that have happened. We have seen that people are trying to innovate too fast, too quickly, often end up much ahead, but alone. And some other that try to do things like a big bang, well, they end up writing off their initiatives. And the way Euroclear does things is in a safe and gradual way. So sometimes it's less exotic, but at least when we solve a problem, we solve it for good. And that's, for example, the part around bond tokenization. It's as vanilla as it can get. You cannot be more vanilla than that. But at least we have shown that it works. There is regulatory clarity, there is technological maturity, and there is liquidity. There is nothing missing into that. So you can issue 1 million or 1 billion, that wouldn't make a difference. And we have shown the way. So everyone wants to redo an issuance platform, that's great, but that's not going to bring something much more new to the market. And what I like with the things that we're trying to do is basically it's putting strong cornerstones in the market. A part is done, interoperability is solved, but now we basically need to be patient enough to find what's the next big thing that is going to bring people more and more there. But it's only it's a patience game. Because if we're trying to get everyone excited about exotic tokenized stuff at scale today, it's not going to happen because you are missing pieces of the puzzle. So there's no magic solutions to that, but we need to have visionary companies like Onera. We need to have this interoperability that is basically allowing everyone to focus on the value. You don't have to care anymore about the layer one you are using. It's just connected. And that's the beauty of it. And on top of that, if you think, we used to connect with each other before, so that's not something new, but we had to do it one by one. And when you have like a strong engine, this is where you actually get all the scale and the benefit of it. Because you have one router, everyone else has one router, and then you have the full network. And we know something about network because that's one of the biggest assets of Euroclear, is having all the network. So being able to have this network in a seamless way, in an easy way, in a digital asset world, that's going to be key to unlock the value.
I liked what you said in there, like about patience in particular. We're all kind of, with digital assets in our titles, sometimes the CFOs of our companies are saying, well, come on, when is this innovation going to happen? Why am I not getting the return on equity now? So it is about patience, I think. I think Bill Gates once said as well that it's all about disruptive innovation doesn't happen overnight, and we're in that like baby stage or teenager stage of innovation. So we've just got to be patient. We've got to keep doing the work we're doing, keep pushing. If we look at some of that push, I know we talked about it offline, this hybrid world, I think, that we live in and that we need to operate in for a while. If you're a purist, probably you don't like it, but as Euroclear, how do you see the value in that hybrid world?
I think it's working for today. Is it the pure, you know, if you look back like 2-3 years ago, if it was not pure blockchain, end-to-end, why bother? All these initiatives, most of them have stopped. Because not only it's not bringing value, it's actually harming the value. Because if you don't have liquidity, if you have to call your friends to hold the token and wait for the redemption, okay, you have proven that the technology works. We are at the stage where we know the technology works, and I'll put a big disclaimer on that later on, but the technology works. So there has been a shift now to basically, if you want to tap into the trillions of assets, we hold more than 40 trillion of euro of assets under custody. that's not something we can take lightly. And we don't do that lightly. So everything we do is most probably more slower, but has much more impact. And the way we are able to get the scale and to get the client demand, because you need three things for adoption and for scale. You need regulatory clarity, you need technological readiness, and you need client demand. And there's not a lot of spaces in our industries where you have all three of them. So I think, everyone you will bring on stage will swear that no more POCs, this is done. Yes, but I think we are moving away from innovation by press release, just, doing things, stuff like that. And if we do a POC, it has to serve a value. And the value it has to serve is that we don't need to prove anymore that the technology works, because in the pieces we do, it works. But we are going to simulate real time everything around regulatory, legal, compliance, etc. So basically, we are going to identify exactly what's the missing point in the ecosystem, the tech and the regulatory around, to be able to solve it together. And most probably one of the things that is holding us back might be focus of the industry.
Yeah. We also talked about the fact that we should be forcing the issuers, or not forcing per se, but certainly...
I never said that.
When we have a new MTN program that's being launched, it should include digitally native as kind of the key conditions for its launch, and almost then allowing that realignment back into Euroclear in a traditional way, but starting from the position of it being digital.
Well, I think, that's the next part of the evolution, I would say. There's no going back. There is a belief, because everyone in this room and everyone out there and every other company is investing in digital assets structurally. It means there is a belief that is going to bring value. There is a way to get there, and there is patience to be actually... we need to be more patient. But what we ask from the clients as well, because we are all enthusiasts here, but the clients need to play along. Meaning that if you want to do a one-shot insurance, thank you, we welcome you, but it has a limited impact. If you honestly believe that it's going to bring value, but it takes time, build a specific program on that. Take a commitment to say, basically, you are going to have X% of your insurances that are going to be done in a digital way, because you have the regulatory clarity, you have the technological maturity, and you don't have to compromise anymore on liquidity if you choose the right solution. And one of the solutions is obviously the Euroclear way of doing that. So that's, supporting the market in the right direction, but it's a structural move. And I think that's what we need, because when we talk to clients, why, if we ask a central bank, why are you taking that as collateral? And I look at my friend from Moody's, it's as a bond is a bond is a bond. It has a good rating, etc. It often comes down to there's not enough supply. So I would like to think about the problem. At the moment, there is actually enough supply in the market for me to take that into consideration. And maybe for the, what's going to unlock that from the buy side as well is, if there is a lot of supply out there, then, it's good for me to try to understand how I can unlock more benefits. But it's still at the balance stage where we need to push more in a more structural way to get the ecosystem moving. And that's only with companies like us that are pushing in the right direction that we will see an actual change.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Like the supply, the kind of core fundamentals need to be there. Where do you see, I suppose, in the next year, 18 months, the biggest innovation going to happen? What are the use cases? We say technology is solved, so now it comes back to fundamentals, really. Like, is this an interesting product? Is it got a right price point for me? Are we going to see that start to happen in the market?
So I'm head of innovation. And I actually believe that this should not be part of innovation. That's maybe how companies get it wrong. It should be business as usual. And we need more transformation than actual innovation. And what I think the company need to figure out is what are the fundamentals they need internally to be able to cope with that without having to have a headache about all the other problems. And that's what I personally like about Onera, is that today you have to compromise. You know, if you go to any committee, is it public, is it private, is it this chain? Imagine you didn't have this question to ask. And you basically said, okay, I'll take the router, all my clients have it, the buy side, the sell side, everyone, and then you just connect seamlessly. Will that actually unlock the problem? And so for me, what we need is take it slowly, but make the right decisions in a structural way that are going to allow us to progress forward. And until you have these routers, this connector that will allow you to interact seamlessly with any kind of technology that is out there, you are still be lost in some conversation that actually could be avoided at this current stage of development. So I think that's actually what needs to happen in the companies today to be able to unlock more.
Yeah, I think we also talked about the cost of doing these transactions at the moment in terms of, yes, there's a cost, there's obviously legal fees, there's transfer agent fees, whatever it is, but there's also those hidden costs of this then needs to go through 50 million committees to get approval, and that's often delaying us in terms of that adoption as well. Like if it's going to take 6 months to get approval to do an issuance, then that doesn't foster adoption really in the market. And
I think there has been a major, so there has been a shift in the market, and we are playing, and all the ecosystem is playing a key role in helping others figure out things right. Once again, you know, we do innovation in a safe and gradual way. Like, you know, it's progressing. And when you look at something as vanilla as a bond issuance like 2 years ago, it was a bit challenging conversation during the roadshows. If you look at the roadshows today, it's almost, it's much more easy. So we saw that with the latest bond issuance we did with AIIB. An Asian supranational deciding to use a Belgian platform with a UK security law. That's how international it gets. And, you know, it was largely oversubscribed, and we did the first ever tap issuance on DLT because we just needed to serve more and more demand. So it's showing that liquidity is so now, I think, you know, the collective effort of everyone trying to push the market forward is providing some benefits. We see clearly that investors are saying, okay, we'll go for it, that's fine. And this is where we are at the point where we are seeing more benefits being there because there is much less resistance. And then I think, you know, everyone needs to figure out who they are and what they want to play in the ecosystem.
You talked about collaboration there a little bit, and how do you see collaboration being a huge part of this collective movement to drive adoption?
I think it's fundamental. And I think there has been a shift in the mindset as well of the people. Everyone tried to take a piece of the pie of the neighbor or eat their lunch because, you know, why not? Technology allowed it supposedly, but everyone has realized that, you know, all the money they spent building their own, you know, didn't pay off so far. And we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We need to partner with the current solution that exists to actually, time to market is key. We cannot waste any more time and millions in building something where we should be focusing on demonstrating the value and bringing everyone together. And sometimes, you know, we are an infrastructure. We build highways. So everyone can try to build a highway, but it takes some expertise to actually build the highways and have the connectors. And people need to build cars, people need to build parking lots, people need to build services and restaurants on the highways. And maybe one day you'll even have a toll and be able to actually monetize all that. But for the time being, until the moment people decide to partner, decide to focus on what they are good at, and not just redo what we are doing in our traditional world, in the decentralized world, but actually transform the way we are thinking of things and actually leveraging the benefits of this technology, we will be a bit stuck.
Well, we're out of time. I know Max is keen to get up here, but thank you.
She's chasing her out.
But thanks a lot for your time today, Jürgen, and I'm sure you'll see Jürgen around as well. Do you want to ask any?
Do you want to do one question before we wrap up, despite Max's eagerness, yeah? I'm glad I'm usually being blamed.
Max,
so
Max, come here, come sit with us.
Okay, I'm coming on stage now.
Any questions from the audience for Jürgen? Max, any questions for Jürgen?
So I was actually fascinated by what you just said, Jürgen, in regards to the shift in the sentiment from investors when it comes to the placement. What do you think is the reason for that, right? If I understood correctly, you said a few years ago as opposed to today. So why is that?
People have done their homework. That's as simple as, so until you did it the first time, you don't know if it's going to hurt or not. So basically, by having us and having others coming to their committees just saying, you know, this is the regulation, this is the legal opinion, this is what needs to change, this is how we have adapted our terms and conditions, and basically you are dealing with one Euroclear, which is where we have adapted the core securities and settlement system. It gives you all the safety and soundness of an FMI. When you look at others, you know, Monday morning they are a commercial bank, Tuesday morning they are a CSD-like somewhere in Luxembourg, Wednesday they are a tech provider to another CSD, and Thursday I don't know. So that's creating some noise in the market. At least we're consistent in what we're trying to do. So the more people do, the more people talk to their management, the more people are getting ready for what's coming next.
Thanks ever so much. Thank you, Michael.
Well, thank you very much.